You ready?
Ready?
You ready?
Yeah, I'm already standing. I'm ahead of the game.
1 PM, we're getting ready to start our regular board meeting of Wednesday, January 11th. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Becca, you take roll, please?
Director Cicada.
Here.
Director Thomas.
Here.
Director Davidson.
Here.
Director Underhill.
Here.
President Ratterman.
Here. Item 2, public comment. At this time, members of the public may address the board on any non-agendized item. The public is encouraged to work through staff to place items on the agenda for board consideration. No actions can be taken on matters not listed on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Any public comment today?
Don't know that you're aware of the flyer that was put out, and on that flyer, it had said that it was a CCWD project, this biosolids. That when that flyer was designed and done, we couldn't find anybody that had that project. And come to find out, extensive discussion with Mike Minkler, there was a business plan that was submitted that I gave you guys that Gabriel has said that probably should have never made it to there, but they had to have something to look at for the zoning commission for this biosolids thing. That being said, I would like to submit to you the petition that we collected in names, and there's about 1,000 names here, and we have an online petition going forward. And this is the purpose of the proposed biosolids and proposed conditional use permit Copperopolis residents petition. The names on this petition are the voices of Copperopolis. We are not happy with the poorly rolled out conceptual design of a biosolid fertilizer facility. It is a fact that there was a business plan document submitted and probably shouldn't have been. It was designed so that they could have something to look at so they'd be able to vote on zoning. It is a fact that the Planning and Zoning Commission met on it. And then there are town hall meetings at Black Creek Park that were held by the association and the biosolids committee, which was me, and then one that was held by CCWD, which basically the residents didn't want it. And so people aren't actually comfortable still with the fact that it's here. So they're looking to have CCWD say something hard. It was reported that Russ Thomas said that you guys voted on something, and I said, that's not true, because it would have happened in open forum. They don't vote in private session. And a bunch of people at the poorhouse were writing texts and stuff to me. So that being said, I would like to submit this to you guys. I think it's a good faith effort to show you that what we're doing, everything like that. Copperopolis residents are still extremely concerned about the biosolids facility, but we appreciate all the hard work that Mike Minkler and his staff have been doing to repair and expand our infrastructure. As they have worked extremely hard for us the past 5 years, and that is 100% appreciated.
Thank you.
Matt, are you
You
gonna
just
hold
leave
that
it,
stuff?
leave it
Who can
with
I-
Rebecca, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
You do have kept a copy of all that for yourself, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Anyone online, Rebecca? Okay, consent agenda. Following items are expected to be routine, non-controversial. Items will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member may request that any item be removed for later discussion. Item 3, there's item 3A, 3B, 3C, 3D, and 3E.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Becca, can you take roll?
Director Cicada.
Yes.
Director Thomas.
Yes.
Director Davidson.
Yes.
Director Underhill,
Yes.
President Retterman.
Yes. Okay, item 4, new business. 4A, discussion, action regarding appointment to board committees and election of members to Joint Powers Authority. Do you want to start this as far as what the process is, or you want me to go into my little memo?
Can we just make a motion? And do we need any discussion?
Sure.
Sent it out to us.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions on this item? We've created, let me just go through, we created we've always had 3 longstanding committees: legal affairs, engineering, and finance. We did create a new committee for this year called
External relations.
External Relations.
There you go.
And here we go. So and then I've appointed to everyone to committees, got a chance to take a look at it in the board packet. The first step on this is what, Michael?
The committees, we don't need to do anything.
Yeah, I don't think that.
Can I make a motion to recommend the slate, or do we have to do them individually? For the joint powers authorities?
Yeah. We feel that's abstract.
Okay, so in regards to the joint power authorities, I'll recommend that we adopt the slate that is in our that is listed here in 4B.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, 4A.
Here we got a motion and a second. Does this motion, I know it doesn't include the committees, they're already appointed and anticipate accepted. But all the rest of them, JPAs is what the motion in front of us is. Does that include the entire rest of the slate? There's 3 sections of this, committees and appointees.
I think it's just the JPAs that need the motion.
Okay,
Yeah, and
all right.
I'm just trying to add, but I don't think any of them require to be submitted as just separate resolution.
Sorry. So I think we can do it collectively through a motion.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Do we take roll, Becca?
Okay. Director Cicada,
Yes.
Director Thomas.
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
Director Underhill,
Yes.
President Retterman.
Yes.
But I would like to point out that the president has to be on his best behavior because we can change everything.
Oh, we got new rules. You're proposing new rules?
No.
Unfortunately, that's
The House.
Okay.
It only takes one board member to fix it.
Yeah, right.
It's the people's house, whatever you say. Okay, item 4B, we got a winter storm update. Damon?
Good afternoon, President Ratterman, directors. So we have a slideshow. I think this is one up now. So as I'm sure you all know, operations staff, keep a close eye on the weather, and as the storm of New Year's Eve, which was approaching, I would say like the 28th through the 31st, we were having discussions with our field supervisors about the weather report and whether or not we thought it would be a good idea to put folks on standby. And at that point in time, the weather report for that particular storm wasn't illustrating it as an extreme weather event, although we all know it turned out to be. So we ended up putting a significant amount of staff on standby. And that first round of storms was really associated with handling all the inflow and infiltration into the wastewater collection system. And as you guys know, multiple communities were flooded, and we have some pictures to kind of illustrate that. But that first phase was really focused on managing influent flows. We had lift stations in Copperopolis, in Arnold, and in Valley Springs that could not keep up with the amount of influent flow and the amount of infiltration that was taking place. So we staged pumper trucks and our VACONs at strategic places in order to be able to keep those lift stations from spilling. and really kind of to augment their operation.
One quick
Yeah.
question. On the infiltration, was it due to flooding like manholes or is it more groundwater infiltration from pipes?
Both.
What you think?
It was both, but I would say for the most part, it would be groundwater infiltration. Yeah. But we did have a significant amount. We do have a lot of cross-country manholes in all service areas that would be underwater during this time
Do we
period.
have any clay pipe out there?
I don't know if we have any clay pipe. Yeah, I would, yeah,
That was just where connections are, where roots get in and where.
that's right. Yeah. And so then as these, it feels like the 31st was just yesterday for us, but as these storms have gone on, it turned into a fuels management, power outage management, refueling effort, and then really kind of honed in on wastewater treatment operations. So I just want to take my hat off to Zach Burke, Michael Kennedy, Gabe Demikas, Ron Rose up on the pass, and David Bias on our collections crew, Amos, Matt, a whole host of folks that really put in an inordinate amount of time to keep everything up and running. You know, our electricians, Jared Devich, Craig, Tony, Brian, and we had one mechanic through the brunt of the storms working standby and really kind of taking advantage of Roger and Dylan from our construction crew, Cameron, Edens, working to make sure that all of our infrastructure stayed up and running. So without further ado, I'll jump into the show and tell. So just kind of, and Director Davidson helped me out with some of these locations. I think the image on the left, it's Highway 26. I mean, it's pretty clear there.
There, St. Andrews.
Yeah.
The Thomas Center.
Yes. And so unfortunately, we started to see Highway 26 yesterday start to come back to this kind of a flood stage, although it receded pretty quickly. You know, more areas of La Cantena, Gold Creek, and Valley Springs here in these pictures. Hogan Dam Road on the left, Milton Road on the right. So that was another thing that starts to crop up. As you can imagine, we have field staff heading all over the county. The next thing you know, access becomes an issue. So we might have an issue with a generator in Copper. And in this case, our electrician, Brian, is trying to get through Milton Road from Valley Springs area. And then it's like, okay, I guess I'm going to drive through this. Or, you know, there's all kinds of, last couple nights, it was trees. I think we had on the EOC call today, we had a documented tornado. Was it 50 yards wide? Travel for about 4/10 of a mile out Lost City. Hogan Dam Road, I would say, can you say between basically Salt Springs Reservoir and Lake Hogan, kind of out in that area? Felix, I guess you would call that.
That's all he lived in.
So, you
That's
know,
when I
our
lost my
crews,
roof tile.
yeah, our crews have to work on all this, and you can see, you know, accidentally placing ruts in somebody's property where we have to set a trailer mounted generator. So we're fixing ruts while we're also setting generators. Bucket truck in action. So one of our issues through New Year's Eve, which we had Dylan and Roger celebrate New Year's Eve together at a lift station, pumping it down and refueling the pumper truck. Was,
Have we got the custom license plate that says Cindy for that truck yet?
oh, we need to, yeah. It's a great idea. We'll work on that. Yeah. Yeah. We'll work on that for sure.
You
So
know,
this,
getting to like that truck,
Oh.
more.
yeah.
When
So
that light comes in, I'm glad to stand by it, you know.
Photo op,
like I'm
yeah. Definitely a photo op.
in the bucket.
Yes. So this was this was our electrician, Jared Craig, trying to,
I didn't realize you had a sense of humor.
Sorry.
no, it's all good.
I'm just.
Yeah, trying to restore comp. So we have a lift station called 6 Mile, which conveys septage from one of our communities to City of Angels Camp. And we had a heck of a time.
That's a good place to send it.
Yes, right? Yeah, we had a heck of a time with communications to that lift station from our Vallecito site. So our electricians are trying to limb some trees in order to maintain calm during the storms. Let's see. Got it? I lost it.
I
Oh,
think
there
we
we
can
go.
just
Okay.
Photoshop that next
So
time.
this is the Middle Fork. I don't know if, how many of you all have seen the Middle Fork pumping station? So our Inspector Jared in the image on the left, so his back is to the pump station building. He's looking out at the Middle Fork. There's the low head dam, which you can see is kind of the obstruction on the left. And right in front of that is an intake pipe that's somewhat exposed. And so we were out, Michael was there and Pat assessing the condition of that intake pipe. Because one of the concerns is in 2017, the heavy river flow picked that pipe up and destroyed it and moved it. So we just wanted to make sure that if we could get our eyes on it, we still haven't been able to get our eyes on it. The image on the right is the Bear Creek diversion. So if you remember, in 2019, we had a massive amount of sediment come down the creek and obstruct our intake at that point in time, and FEMA paid CCWD to go ahead and restore that. And
That,
so,
that's coming into the Bummerville.
Yes.
Lake Bummerville.
that's correct. So right here is the intake structure that sends that water to Lake Bummerville.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I have a
yes.
question. And so we had to make sure that there was no obstruction. That was
Right.
our main concern.
So after the dust settles, so to speak, with, okay, we can manage the influent flow, we're not going to spill. The next effort really set the treatment operators aside. The treatment operators almost have a round the clock effort to keep folks in water. John Brown and his crew, John Applegate, David Young, those guys work to keep people in water. And then we have a whole other crew of wastewater operators working to keep
Right.
folks, make sure the wastewater stays where it's supposed to be. So that's kind of one swirl of work going on. And then we have electricians that are addressing issues as they might crop up. Hey, this pump doesn't work. I need this pump to work. Hey, we need to turn this VFD up to get more out throughput through this pump station. So they're doing that work. Mechanics are refueling generators and addressing any failures, of which we had some at the Arnold wastewater plant associated with the effluent pump discharge. We needed to dismantle a check valve. So we have our construction crew working with our mechanics. And so the other folks, so to speak, are assessing intake structures. How are we looking with our influent flow? And then the next one, which is going to be the topic moving forward, is treated wastewater storage. How are we looking with storage? And so this is kind of what this is all about. The image on the right is just to show you that the winds were good enough to tip a can over. So, and then the image on the left is the spillway at the Wilson Dam. You can see a lot of debris that came through there. Let's see, what else do we have? This is the Vallecito main lift station. So some of you may have heard of Vallecito during the event. Is this Angel Creek? Forgive me or Coyote Creek. I think this might be Coyote Creek. I mean, you can see it's kind of hard to tell in the image on the left, but you're a mere foot away from the bridge there in town. And so this is behind the lift station, just photographing the creek there. This is Copper. The image on the left is behind Saddle Creek. So there's kind of that drainage, that dry drainage there. It's flowing like a river. And then the image on the right is behind Copper Hills subdivision off of O'Burns there. There's kind of a flat area, and you can see the porta potties and the hygienic station are all blown over. And let's see what else we have.
Is there a spill there?
No, oh well,
That high
inside
water,
there, yeah.
the high water in Copperopolis, that's Little John Creek then, huh?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Hmm.
The image on the left here is the duck pond by the shopping center in Arnold, Meadowmont there. And then the image on the right is San Antonio, and it was a video, but I don't know if it can play. Oh, where? Oh, cool. It's a little choppy, but it gives you an idea of just where the flow was. Yeah, it's been quite an adventure. Hats off to all the crew and everybody. This is some of the erosion that we experienced on Highway 4. It's kind of hard to tell. But in the image on the left, you have the storm drain that you can see the opening of. And then if you look just above that, there's this smooth kind of outcropping of water line. So that's a 6-inch AC water line, I believe that is. Oh, it's steel. Okay, yeah. So this is a line that comes off of the Reach One, the newly installed Reach One on Highway 4, almost at the very end of the Reach One section of piping. Kind of by the passing lanes if you're heading up Highway 4 or the surf shack on the right there. If you go up, it's right past those small homes on the right there.
Okay.
And here we go, Moran Road on the left. This is kind of after a couple rounds of wind. So, you know, mechanics trying to get to a tank site. This is Eric Davis trying to get to Avery tank site and
Did you lose any trees?
entry denied. And so this is, Joe Darby took this video on the right. Let's see if it'll play. This is the spillway that Director Ratterman used to slide down. Let's see.
It looks a little different.
Into the, basically the after bay. It looks like an after bay at this point in time, into the San Antonio Creek. And there's the gauging
Wow.
station, which has disappeared. So a few more pictures of Valley Springs, pretty dramatic shots here of town proper in the mobile home park.
We could still get you in there, Director Admin, if you want to slide again.
Yeah, no, but you
Yeah,
guys cleaned all
yeah.
the moss off it.
Right, And then,
There's enough flow though, the moss, you won't even notice the
You
moss.
need a tube now.
this is somewhat of an unassuming picture, but this is the confluence of Cosgrove Creek and Calaveras River right behind the Jenny Lind Water Treatment Plant. And I would say this picture was taken at about 1800 CFS leaving Hogan and well, I think we're about 4,000 now, probably. And then, so in, interestingly enough, I was a treatment operator in 06 at this facility when they were releasing about 9,000. And the water was lapping up. That white tower on the right is a liquid oxygen tank, and it was kind of right on the edge of that at that point. in time.
Wow.
But-
It caused Cosgrove to back up.
So there was conversation of that on the EOC call this morning, which I thought was kind of interesting because the Army.
They're releasing pretty heavily now, so.
Right, and so there's a lot to unpack there with that group, and we recognize that back during this time period, or back in the day also.
Yeah,
But
I'll have
right.
some comments on all that here.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. So that's the visual report.
Yeah, no, my question is, we know what we went through. Do we have any, the right word to use for what's gonna happen? Because we're gonna go through, how many? 3 storms are coming?
Yeah. So in terms of addressing kind of what happens when we have just a dramatic amount of inflow and infiltration, we have Foothill Sanitary helps us. So if we don't have enough pumper trucks or we find ourselves exhausted, we have folks that can help us evacuate all the lift stations. More to the long term, the question about mitigation long term, the CIP is designed to do that. And so.
No, but I just meant for these upcoming storms, because, we're gonna.
Yes. Yeah, and one thing that we didn't talk about is Pat and Amos and Jesse and the supervisors out in the field really do a great job of. Okay, I'm gonna need you to hang
Yeah.
tight for today and go home and get some rest, because in 2 days, I'm gonna need you to go out because this person is gonna be ready to tag out, so to speak. And so that is kind of a continuing effort. Folks, as folks have a time to recharge, then they'll let us know, hey, I got some sleep last night. I'm ready for standby. And another person, and we're not shy. It's
Yeah,
like, if you're
I-
exhausted, go home,
Yeah, I think I remember this conversation from last winter.
Right?
Yeah,
it's-
and again, it's
Yeah.
regrouping and, and as I said last winter, I want to make sure that all of these guys have whatever they need,
Appreciate that. Thank you.
right?
Well.
Did they have party favors when they were together on New Year's?
Excuse
Did
me?
you have party favors for the guys when they were?
No, you know what? It's like you always think about these things afterwards. You're
Right,
like,
right.
man, I should have drove out there and said,
Yeah.
hey, Happy New Year.
Well, you could have helped out
Yeah.
on
Right.
some of this stuff.
Speaking of that, is it, are you?
That's it. I'm done.
I have a couple comments. I just want to remind everybody, I warned you. I mean, it was very obvious to some of us down there that we were going to have a flood event. And I was extremely disappointed with Calaveras County's response, particularly at Castle Rock Trailer Park. A little, anybody would have known that we were at capacity and we were going to have an event. And, there were probably, I don't know, 20 cars that were inundated in Castle Rock trailer park, and there was really no warning. And it makes me want to think when you're having discussions with the county guys, we need to have somewhat like a like we have for fire danger. We should have a warning system for flood events. It wouldn't take much more than maybe a few, sandwich board signs to put out, when we know we're, having these atmospheric river things down. And I'll tell you right now, we'll be susceptible for floods in Valley Springs probably throughout the rest of the year. And now that it's so saturated, it won't continue to rain. All it really takes is a good thunderstorm. As a matter of fact, yesterday I mean, it's been like Groundhog Day down there, and you never know, it seems the same. But, just that little bit of thunder that came through, just a fast little band brought it up into the flood area again, flooded the golf course and all that. And so, I do think we need to think of that, and I don't know what our role is in regards to alerting the county of when we think we're gonna have significant flows. I know we put out a press release being, kind of happy about the atmospheric. It was more of water supply response. And I think I made a call into Michael just saying, hey, hey, let's just a heads up. Well, yeah, it's going to be great to have water. We're going to have a flood event. So I just want to clarify our role in alerting, if we have a role in alerting the county or if we have that ability. But I think we should develop some sort of early warning system when we think it could be imminent.
So when it comes to the operational notification, absolutely. So if the EOC is propped up, we're encouraged. If we hear anything, anybody in the field can, hey, this is happening. There's flooding's happening here. There's a tree down here. There's lightning over here. We let them know.
I'm saying, but get ahead of it.
Understood.
Yeah.
Yep.
And also, I mean, the other part, and I was disappointed with the county again, when and this has got to be a problem for us, the road closures, there was no notice of any road closures on social media until the next day when all the roads were open. And I actually did a loop around, because once again, I've been there since 90. I've seen 4 of these. This one was almost as big as 2006 and probably would have been if they'd been letting the water out of Hogan as fast as they were in 2006. I mean, it was close to the same height, it was in those apartments, but the county should have known. I mean, instead of putting a fire truck at the flood, at the river, at Cosgrove Creek, at the bridge, and then making everybody turn around, go back to Hogan Dam Road where they had an exit route. And I actually, stopped and talked to a couple of fire guys about that. It's like, look, back up so people aren't driving all the way down there and turning around. I mean, but our guys need to know that as well. I mean, they need to know how to get into places. I'm sure our guys kind of do, because South Petersburg Road was the only way that you can get into Valley Springs, but nobody alerted anybody to that. The other way, I guess you could go down to Hogan or the Burson Road and come back that way, but even eventually, I think that got impacted with trees or whatever. So, I mean, it's like I tell everybody about the water business. There's really nothing new going on. It's a bunch of old stuff, and it's true. It's just recurring deals. But I got a couple things.
Sorry,
One-
Director Davidson, can I respond to that point real quick though? Because
Sure.
I think you raised some really important questions about the jurisdictional roles. It's really kind of outside of our scope because it's really the emergency, the fire and the police agencies that are, they have the ability to, they have people all over the county. They have dispatch that's coordinating all the calls that are coming in. They have the ability to, identify.
I
flooding
do
impact
I
more
totally
quickly.
recognize it's not necessarily our role, but it might be our expertise.
Right. So that's what I was gonna say though, and we can still provide the insight that we have. And I think after the dust settles here, setting up a meeting with John and just talking through like, hey, how can we play a more active role in that, within the limits of our jurisdictional control, but recognizing kind of, there will be a lot of discussions, as there is after every disaster about what could have gone better, what could we have done differently.
Well, this
And
was,
so I think
this was
providing-
not an unforeseen thing, and I think Public
Right.
Works really dropped the ball in regards to being a little proactive with some warning.
Right. So we'll make sure we get that input in there and see what, what we can do better next time.
Just,
You got
just,
something further?
I got a couple more quickly, but one thing I noticed that and I don't know, I'm sure you guys have checked this out, but all the bridges, the water went over Vista del Lago. I've seen it go over every single one of those bridges all the way down to Cosgrove Creek back in 2006. But there is unless it's been removed, there is debris. We have sewer lines that go across those bridges, and there is quite a bit of debris built up, or at least there was. Is that something that we can somehow try to get in there and address, or is it just too dangerous to deal with it?
Well, we've
Because we don't
done
want to
it.
lose one of those pipes.
We've done it multiple times already, so that was one of your concern was our concern. And so as soon as we were able to get in there, the Chris Gerbina and Doug and Mike DeBerg, their crew, the Jenny Lynn distribution crew, focused a day and a half on removing debris from the upstream side of those
Okay.
bridges. And we also talked about, hey, how about let's think about retrofitting these pipe alignments to put the pipe on the downstream side, if we can. So
Sure.
so that doesn't become like, oh, wait, I didn't, because, part of the effort is, you're thinking about, okay, what's next? What do I need to think about? And this one always pops up. It's like, oh my gosh. And then when you get there, you don't want to be in that situation where the flood level's risen to the point where you can't.
Would that help? Wouldn't all the debris build up underneath the bridge in that case?
Well, the hope is that you could get it aligned with the downstream side of the bridge. But I think ultimately we just need to come up with a better solution overall. You know what I mean? Yeah.
This is my last comment, I guess. The governor and the president have issued a emergency declaration. What are we doing in regards to some of those projects like the bridge crossings and things like that? What are our options on seeking emergency relief to repair some of those while we have an emergency declaration?
Well, that was my question. While you're addressing it, whoever's going to address that, what benefits are we getting from the emergency and how is that helping us? That kind of goes along with the same
You want to
thing.
take that or you want me to
Oh,
take it?
we can tag team it.
Okay, so we are tracking all of our costs associated with the disaster. The president's disaster declaration does not include Calaveras County yet. We're hoping it will at some point.
Why is that? Our county did they voted for the declaration?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
County did, and
Yes.
and the state
Hasn't
has, but
approved it
the
yet?
federal, no, the state has, but the federal disaster declaration does not include Calaveras County.
Not yet.
Not yet. It may.
We're hearing yet,
Right.
but we're,
California OES has reached out to the administration and is pushing to include Calaveras County in the federal disaster declaration, but as of yet, it is not. But we're still eligible for disaster relief because of the local and state disaster declarations. So all of our overtime costs, any damages that we've had, all of that is getting tracked in addition to all the ops work that these guys are doing. They're having to do the accounting at the same time because we've already had to submit at least initial damage estimates in order so that those agencies have that information to base those disaster declarations on. Because if they don't know what the initial damage estimates are, they may say, well, it can't be that bad. We're not going to declare a disaster for your area. So we have to provide that information as the disaster is happening.
I mean, do we have projects that in 2006, when the event that you talked about
right.
came in and flooded the treatment plant?
Yep.
We got a couple $1 million to put a barrier in there. When we had the Patterson fire and the water tanks burned down, they gave us $1 million to put up a new
Same with the
Fireproof
contaminant
tank.
pretreatment. Yeah,
So are we
Middle Fork,
researching projects to?
Mhm, absolutely.
there's two different
Right.
ways to approach those projects, though. The immediate concern right now is damage caused by the disaster and repairing the immediate repair to that damage. That's covered under the disaster declaration. And then there's the local hazard mitigation plan and seeking FEMA and Cal OES grant funding to pre-hazard mitigation. So identifying projects like that, if it's damaged during the storm, that's covered under the disaster and repair caused by the storm. If it's after the storm, but we've identified projects that can mitigate those disasters
In the future.
in the future,
Yes.
that's under kind of a different program.
We have 2 tracks going.
But we have multiple FEMA funded projects in the works right now. Our Redwood Tanks project's a FEMA funded project under that program. Our Hunter's Raw Water
Mhm.
intake is funded under that, whatever local hazard mitigation program. I mean, we've done a lot of different projects using both sources.
And we've also approached FEMA in the past about the projects that might have not necessarily been funded through the application of the local hazard mitigation plan in different ways. And so we've asked FEMA to help fund the Middle Fork pump station in the West Point area rehabilitation project. And we have a critical facilities generator replacement project that is under review right now that would help us actually in an effort like that we've just experienced with pumping down lift stations, because we could put generators in all those sites. And so, yes, absolutely, like Michael described it really well, but 2 tracks, long-term, short-term, listed in the initial damage estimate. So we're always updating that. So we just got another round of time cards. We go through those, we pull all the overtime. We touch base with Mike Crank, the purchasing agent, all the supervisors. Okay, did we have something fail? We lost ozone generators at the Copper Cove water treatment plant. We had power fluctuations that burn out a UPS, lost an ozone generator. Those will go on that list. We've lost roads. Those will go on that list. So yeah.
The big issue with Cosgrove, and, shortly after I first got on this board, we worked hard to develop a project of a retention basin and some creek restoration. That project ended up getting kicked to the county, and it was a 75-25 match. It wasn't an emergency situation.
Right.
What I'd like you guys to talk to the county about is to contemplate requesting that we dredge that creek. Over the years, all the roots and buildup, I mean, they cleaned the tules out of there, but if you saw that water flow, you realize those tules, they're not doing anything. It needs to be deeper. It needs to be deeper, and perhaps in the emergency declaration, some of the environmental restrictions could be waived, and we can do, and the county, it's the county's responsibility, I realize that, but I would hope that you guys would encourage them to reconsider a project like that would deepen that channel.
Yeah, in fact, I've already had some discussions with the supervisors from that area about looking ahead to that, but that's an example of the kind of project that would be a pre-disaster mitigation funding, not disaster recovery, because it's not damage that was caused by the disaster. So it would fall into that latter category of longer term planning to avoid future disasters or future damage caused by natural disasters. But yeah, that's the kind of thing we can explore with them.
I mean, all we can really do is encourage it, because I mean, the Corps wrote a letter years ago saying, hey, this is the county's problem, not yours. They need to be the ones to address it. But I mean, we have a stake. We don't want to lose those bridges and lose the sewer lines.
And we have infrastructure there, so it is, to a certain degree, it is our problem too, because we've got Huckleberry right there. We've got the treatment plant that Cosgrove Creek will impact. So we do have a direct stake in it as well. And I think, if we add projects to our local hazard mitigation plan, which I'll talk about during my update a little bit, and they've got those same projects in their local hazard mitigation plan, and we're teaming up on those things, there's definitely some work that can be done in collaboration with the county.
If we can get another report, maybe in a month, on where this has ended up, just, Damon, just in your report, or your report, no agendized item, but just where we ended up with the cost.
Yep.
Anyone else, Cindy, Russ?
I have one other thing I want to add to a really great report from Damon and just phenomenal work that our staff have been doing over these last few weeks. I think they're pretty exhausted and the storms just keep coming and we, our staff's just been relentless, keeping everything going. We've had a very minimal damage and, the damage that we have sustained, it couldn't have been avoided. And the fact that all of our facilities continue to operate and our service hasn't been interrupted. It's just a phenomenal amount of work that takes place in order for. that to
Kudos,
happen.
kudos to them.
Have we exhausted our generator backup or, where are we with our generators?
We had a couple spares. We've staged them. So we put one of our trailer mounted in copper. We did have one here on the Courtyard project. We put the wheels back on it and put it in copper also. It's a dance. I'll be quite honest with you, to move these generators around as the power fails, especially when you have access issues. But so far, so good.
And keeping the standby generators that we have that are fixed at those facilities, the constant refueling effort is also part of the logistical dance.
And we have plenty of gas.
Yeah. And one thing too, the county does have an Everbridge kind of a reporting automated system that will text you or send you phone calls. That's how I got the tornado call the other morning, which was great.
4 a.m.
But yeah, right. One of the things that, we talked about internally, which was great, we did emergency action plan tabletops on wildfire, but we really need to start to look at flooding and atmospheric river storms and how we address access issues. If we have, Milton Road's closed, you can't get there. Okay, what are you going to do? And so this topic of making sure your staff is briefed, and I think that's a really good point that you make. And I
Who would
think,
have thought we'd been talking about this 3 or 4 months ago?
right,
It's
yeah,
unbelievable.
and that's,
Well, but it's happened,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
It's gonna happen again.
No,
It'll
it's-
happen again this year. One last thing, I want you to, remember to report this to the state regarding the first responder, because can you imagine how we're gonna, respond when we have all electric vehicles?
So I got an email from our Aqua rep who's working on this. Hey, can you send me photos? And I send them photos of the bucket truck and exactly right. Yeah.
I mean, we
No.
may not even have access. I mean, people, that's the one thing the La Cantera Rancho Calaveras ends up getting isolated
Yes.
from emergency vehicles. I mean, we could not even have access to our treatment plant
Right.
in a worse event.
That's right.
Well, kudos to you guys. Nobody
Just the-
wants to be outside in the middle of this, and I know everyone's been outside for a long, long time.
Two other
I'll
really
relay
quick
that.
points, because it's not, operations has done an amazing job, but it also takes a toll on everybody. I know customer service gets, pardon the pun, flooded with a lot of calls and inquiries, and they're coordinating with operations staff to figure out what's going on. And make sure that operations are aware of what they're hearing. And so and engineering has a role in coordinating with operations on everything. So there's it's definitely, a coordinated effort and an enormous additional workload that happens. The one other thing I'll mention is, in addition to all the work it takes to keep our stuff going, we got a couple of mutual aid requests during these events, and our operations staff were able to respond to those. We're not always able to. We have to do an assessment of, how are our staff doing? How's our equipment doing? Okay, yeah, we can break somebody off or a piece of equipment or whatever it is. We got a request from Utica. They needed help they had a bunch of, not a landslide, but a road had kind of washed out and was in the ditch. And so our staff were able to go and help them clear a blockage of the ditch. We got a request because the county culvert was backed up. So there were Utica staff and CCWD staff responding to that mutual aid request for the county. So when we can, as those requests come in, I think there were others, we're also able to provide assistance to those other agencies. And it takes a toll on our staff in addition to everything else that's been going on.
Do we have direct lines of communication? I mean, they know exactly who to call and.
Oh, yeah. Direct lines of communication, and we also have daily coordination calls with county OES and all of
OES,
the
right.
fire agencies, CHP, PG&E, other water agencies, Caltrans, California OES, these collaborator calls, there's usually about 40, 50 people.
And we try to push all of the requests through that group. So there's like a central hub and then everybody's kind of aware.
And that group didn't exist until about 5 years ago, and it's just been, it's really, really effective. I think
Yeah.
the county has made a lot of improvements in how they respond and coordinate.
Director Thomas and then Director Cicada.
Jeff, I've always been aware of the height differential between the Valley Springs water treatment ponding to Cosgrove Creek. And there's very little differential.
The last time in 2006, it went into the pond, took the pond over, but they got a grant. I actually drove there and looked at that pond on New Year's morning, and it was fine. And actually, I had talked to Mike about it because I was there and took some pictures, but they raised that dam and it was, they had a couple feet left at its peak, I think.
That's good.
Okay.
Cindy.
I just went online, CCWD, and I get the notice about the stage 2 drought that we're in.
That's the
Should
next
we like,
agenda item.
oh, okay. I'm just kind of, I mean, obviously it's too early to call, but
Right.
should we not have it totally coming up right away with all this flooding and
Right,
something?
right.
I don't know.
Well, hey, before you go, any public comment on this item? Go,
Can I stay here?
yeah, go ahead, just some
So-
quick.
You got the text about the tornado, 4 o'clock in the morning, something at 4:15. Hide in your basement. Okay, so, or the lowest level of your house, you've all seen tornadoes, the lowest levels of the house and the tornado are gone, and we don't have a basement. They need to update that somehow.
I'll convey that information.
They copied and pasted that from Kansas, I think,
Yeah.
where people have
They
basements.
might have told me, go outside, there's a tornado. And I went outside to look.
It's like, the wind was blowing 75 miles an hour.
Did they tell you, to bring your golf clubs with you?
Yeah, I'd keep playing.
It's like, I have a storm had gone right over top of Robbins.
Okay, we're gonna move on this item. Back to 4A, before we move into 4C, back to 4A, any public comment on 4A?
For B. Oh, sorry.
Okay, back to 4B, public comment.
Hello,
Go ahead.
yes, Ralph Copeland, how are you?
Good,
Thank you
Ralph.
very much, guys, for all your hard work during these storms. Director Davidson, have you been in contact with Supervisor Toffanelli to take care of your concerns regarding the county actions? And,
Ralph, we don't have time to have conversation. Just make a comment. That's what we're
Okay,
doing.
that's the comment I have. I would be in contact with your supervisor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we are in touch with the county on it.
Okay, any other public comment? 4B, 4A, before we get to 4C. Mid-year water supply review, is Brad gonna take this?
So the good news is, as I think the board knows, or maybe not, but Brad is not here, and that is good news because his baby came early. Healthy baby girl was born Monday morning. So, and to, you know, true to form, Brad offered to be here to call in for this item, but we decided the Water Resources Department and Jessica's help, and we can cover it and let Brad enjoy it. They just got home from the hospital today, so.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to
Little
Brad,
girl.
and so Kelly's gonna step up.
Well, Kelly, welcome.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Hopefully I can do a good job and fill in for Brad. Very exciting time to be in water resources. Very interesting. As you guys know, there's a lot going on. So much has changed since the original mid-year projections that we provided for you guys. So actually, I found out that a lot's changed just since I've been in this room. So we did put together a little report for you. Right. So starting off with our right one. Okay, so this is our current levels. Hogan's been obviously the big talk here and the most exciting to watch. It's come up since I think when we started really diving into it is at like 16%, and it's going up by the hour essentially. So it's been exciting to see. We try to capture all just, the local reservoirs. A lot of times what you're seeing out there, we're seeing the whole statewide ones, but it's really nice to capture what we see here in Calaveras.
Can I just ask one question?
Absolutely.
I always like to see, is this graph, capacity, percentage of capacity?
Yes.
Or percentage of normal year to date?
This one's of just capacity of basically of capacity to full. Yes.
Okay, because I have no problem with it, but I always like to see them side by side because, when the media starts talking that something is 30% of capacity, it's not our intent. It's not the intent of the reservoir to be at capacity.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we do have that information available, like in the daily packet and whatnot. We do those comparisons. I was just trying to do a snapshot of where we're at total, but you're absolutely, that's a great thing to see.
Kelly, excuse me, but the Salt Spring Reservoir that you have listed here, is this Salt Springs upslope or?
Yes, on McCallum.
Up country, yeah.
Yeah.
That one was really low before the storms and I think they were passing through a lot of flow until about a week or so ago. It's been coming up.
Yeah, and that caught my eye too. And I did a kind of a 10-year comparison and they seem to deep cycle that one. If you look at the 10-year, it's very jagged up and down. So they must, how they operated, they must do these deep cycles, I'm assuming. So, cause it was down to a 7% not too long ago. So it's starting to climb now. Any other questions on this?
I'll just, to put it into context for Hogan, just that New Year's storm, or maybe the first week before New Year's, I think it was, if I remember correctly, was it around 60,000? It was around 60,000 acre feet, and then it went up. No, it was at like 40,000.
Yeah, it's just
37,000 acre feet, and then it was up to, 120 in no time. And they were holding back almost all the flow. We'll talk about the flow a little bit.
Yeah, and I certainly have more in-depth information if you guys would like to stop by and see, or I can provide send you guys a link, because there's a lot. I could probably have a lot longer of a presentation if we really went through day by day what was going on.
I'll tell you just the conversation that I hear, there's a huge outpouring of, why the hell don't they divert Cosgrove, and to the extent that I want to engage with these people, and I don't always want to, but it would be nice to get it would be nice to get a report. That's one of the reasons right there.
What?
It would be nice to get a report of what the mission is, for instance, for Hogan Reservoir.
Yeah.
It's not solely recreation, it's a flood control reservoir.
Not even water supply, that's right. It's
Yeah, and I think, there's a great deal of frustration that gets kicked our way because it's like, well, why haven't you guys thought of how to get more water in the reservoir? And I would just like to see, maybe the original mission of the reservoir, because we've requested, reoperation studies. We want more water supply in there, but we're up against the federal mission for the Bureau and the Corps.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to have a report on our local reservoirs and as to how they're operated and by who. If that's something that your team can do, I think it'd be helpful for the county as a whole to understand. It's not a recreation facility solely. Its main mission is to keep floods from occurring in Stockton.
Absolutely.
And so I'd just like to have something that we can share with the public in regards to, what the truth is of how those reservoirs are operating.
I think it's a great idea. Yep,
Yeah.
we'll do it.
I'd like to see it.
So next, I already flipped. Here's basically where we're at year to date compared to last year for precipitation totals. At one point, we did do a percentage, but of course that would be skewed, and this is where we're at as of today. So we're really,
This is kind of misleading, isn't it? Because last year in December was our huge storm and then nothing. Is the end of what?
yeah, so,
Water year?
yeah,
What-
in blue is all of last year's water year,
And that,
including,
the date is December 31st is the end date?
no,
Water
October,
year is October 1st.
October
Oh,
1st through
okay,
September
okay,
30th.
Never
Yeah.
mind. I was
Yeah.
thinking that the only
So-
time it rained was in December and it was caught in 22.
Absolutely, yeah. So
Okay.
that is captured there, but as you can see, it just stopped, which could happen again this year. You never
Right.
know. I mean, we're looking excellent at this point, but we don't know. So that's where we're at as far as total inches. And again, the orange is just to date. So we still have, again, till September 30th to finish up this water year. So this could change drastically in the next few days, as it has been doing. And on a total for all of Calaveras County, we're at about 160% of average to date. So, and that was taking into consideration everything, and Valley Springs, I think, was like well over 200% to date. So again, which numbers can change. Next is our two main reservoirs. Same thing like you asked for, Director Davidson, as far as what we're at. Hogan is at 50% as of this morning, and which puts us at about 140% of average. And New Spicer Meadow, 45% of capacity, which puts us at about 90% of average for this time of year.
Yeah, the lake level is fantastic right now. I mean, it really seems like we're gonna be, perhaps even if it continues normal, we may be up into the campgrounds where they don't really want it.
Yeah. I was amazed at the flows, like, again, changing by the minute. It was just something, it was
Well,
amazing.
I drove up to Copper the other day to look at a job, and the whole, is it San Antonio Creek out here? On Full Station Road?
No, that's.
Yeah, that's just, that
Oh,
makes Cosmo Creek look like a little stream. You know, there's a lot of water to it,
Yeah.
you know.
So the next slide is the inflows. This is over a 30-day period going into New Hogan Reservoir. And you can see that largest spike there, that was around the New Year's storm that we were discussing earlier. And, you know, those inflows were over 25,000 cubic feet per second at its highest. I think it was like, yeah, it was well over 25,000 cubic feet per second. So, and then the most recent storms just the other day, you see those spikes again. So it's coming in. There's a lot of water. And then we have the outflows. And this is kind of what you were talking about with flood control and how rapidly this changed. And I found out, I mean, this was as of this morning. And then again, during this meeting, I found that it might today go up to 4,000. So as of this, it was the highest outflow was 3,027 cubic feet per second. But you can see in this graph, I mean, it's changing rapidly. I mean, and by, 1,000 within minutes.
But Damon, you did mention that you're in coordination with those at the dam regarding the outflows and.
So our treatment plant operators really have a good relationship with the folks at the dam, so they get the quickest information. And then there's been a change in some of the Army Corps staff that used to reach out to us here in the office. And so Michael did a great job the other day on the phone or on the EOC call and got a hold of the Army Corps folks that were representing them and Hogan, and then said, hey, we need to kind of reestablish this administrative conversation also. Incidentally, John Brown, who's the senior supervisor of treatment at Jenny Lynn, does watch the outflows religiously every single day and does have a really good relationship with the folks there. And he reminded me that in 2006, we were at about 9,000 feet, CFS, excuse me, of discharge. So Hogan is much more on top of it. I don't know if that was by happy accident or because of the drought or because of effective management. It's in terms of Jenny Lynn Water Treatment Plant, we're much better off right now than we have been previously.
Yeah, and since we are talking about the flows now, so they were, even when the inflow was at 25.5, that's a lot of water. And they were holding all of it back. They were only releasing, I think, 40 CFS at that point in time. So that's why you saw the reservoir level just shoot up. Because we were getting a ton of water and they weren't increasing the releases at all, but that has changed recently. So now that we've hit, we have the water supply, there is a water supply pool, as you guys know, in Hogan, already past that point. And so now they actually are increasing releases because they want to make sure there's enough of a buffer left in the reservoir to absorb future storms for that flood control, purpose. And so they're up to, I think you might have already shown it, but up to 3,000 CFS outflow to sort of stabilize the level of the reservoir. If we see inflows like this again, then the outflows are going to go up a lot faster than they did this first time around.
Are they making power?
Yeah, we haven't heard of any issues with the powerhouse. So, and our power revenues are actually higher than we projected for this time of year. So, no, to our knowledge, there's not been any interruptions, but.
So the next is, I guess, why we're here is it was the mid-year supply versus demand. And again, so much has changed since that was originally presented to you folks. Most of our projected demands are lower than what we did project originally. One thing we wanted to note here with this, the right side of this slide is that with Bear Creek's pre-1914 rights, it helped us avoid curtailment constraints, which helped us from having to purchase more water from CPUD. And so that's on the right side there. And same thing, I mean, our actual demands are below all of our projected demands. And then here's of course, everyone's talking about the snowpack. So this is actually to date, this was January 11th, 2023 on the right, January 11th, 2022 on the left. Basically the Central Sierra this time last year, as of today, was at 58%, and this year is at 104%. But if we have seen situations like this in the past, like in 2013, and even like you said, Director Ratterman, last year in December, we started off with this wonderful snowpack and it just went to almost nothing. So it still can happen. It's basically what happens between February and March now is going to really tell the whole story of this water year. But it's always fun to see, especially
Excuse me, I came through 6 to 8 inches of berm to get to this meeting today. So that's what
Hey, I hope it keeps on going up. I
We
love
should
this
add a
snow.
data point here.
Yeah.
Size of the berm in front of Director Underhill's house.
Well, maybe I can add to the map, like the location where you're at, and in your house, what the snow is there. So then that kind of leads into the drought question, Director Cicada. Of course, we are still in stage 2. I know it seems like probably with all that's going on, we shouldn't. However, there, still several reservoirs across the state are still below 60%. And as you can see, I mean, this is pretty much the end of last year's water year, and there's a huge difference. So there is improvements. However, we're still very much in this drought. And the next slide shows Calaveras in particular, and this was a huge improvement, but 100% of Calaveras is still considered in moderate drought. 67 is still considered in severe drought, and luckily less than 1% is in extreme drought. So we are seeing improvements. However, we are still in stage 2.
It's very possible that corner that's in extreme drought is underwater at this point.
Yeah, and this is changing dramatically too. I checked it again this morning to see if I can get get that little sliver out of there, but this is still only updated, I think, from the 3rd or the 5th. So
Who updates this?
this is through, I think CaliforniaDrought.org. I believe this one is.
This is probably DWR's drought monitor, I think, right?
Yeah, so there's, again, it's just changing
I'm sure they're playing catch.
constantly. Yeah, so I think this is going to improve as well, but
Yeah, I think from a regulatory standpoint, though, the drought stage hasn't changed. We could take the flash off the
Yeah,
website.
just
No, I think it makes sense.
probably still too early, because what if everything
We-
stops
right.
now in February? and we-
Well, but from a regulatory standpoint, that's what they're gonna watch. They know, it takes a long time for Shasta and Oroville and New Melones to recover, even with these storms that we've had. So they're gonna keep an eye on those levels, and as Kelly said, and put it perfectly, the story of this water year has not yet been told. And it'll unfold over the next few months, and we'll see how, but if it, keeps coming and any, not at the same level, but even, normal precipitation from here on out, we'd be in good shape.
What's the status of Maloney's inflows and outflows? Is it unimpeded?
It's pretty good, except for the other day, I noticed one of the sensors for the inflow showed negative. So I'm not sure if something happened with that sensor. It hasn't been the same since. I don't think it's accurate. But the outflows aren't crazy because I think there's still so much room in there. It's still pretty low.
Yeah, they are holding water back.
But right now,
It's coming up.
yeah, as of about, I don't know, 3 or 4 days ago, something happened to one of the inflow. The data is not accurate. It showed negatives. And again, I've got more information on this that I would be glad to share with you and show you if you want to dive into more of the information. Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I did want to follow up with you as well. You mentioned like some of these peak flows and stuff, and there is something I'm working on as far as GIS layer, which you can click on some of the different rivers throughout our region and it'll tell you peak flows. It'll say like peak flow in 4 hours. Here's what's expecting. And I'm hoping to put something together interactive like that.
That'd be great.
Where we could kind of see this and maybe get that out to our customers and so people know what's going on.
Yeah,
Because
or even, give that information, give it over to the Public Works Department. I mean, Public Works has got to be the agency that is responsible for that. But
absolutely.
whether they have that data,
Is there a
don't
way
know.
of establishing that tool on our website?
Well,
Where anybody can.
It's still something we're working on. So hopefully,
I mean, when you
it's
get-
something,
yeah, right.
absolutely. Hopefully it's something we can get out and
Okay.
just,
But we
help.
have provided, so Kelly prepared some really good, and Brad's done it in the past too. We've had these data packets that include sort of the whole hydrologic picture of Calaveras County. And Kelly did an adapted version of that we have been sharing with Calaveras OES. And they've been really, really pleased to see kind of the whole picture because they're going off of, like I said, what dispatch is telling them in terms of which roads are flooding. And so it gives them the ability to kind of take a bigger picture view of the whole picture. So yeah, we'll continue sharing that and developing those tools and refining them and sharing them. Yeah, you can still get the public data packets on our website. And I'll see, I don't know if it's updated recently. We were having a technical issue with it. And I think the 8th or 9th was the last time it had updated, but you can still pull those public data packets off the website. So we'll get those refreshed.
Any other questions or comments for Kelly up here? Any public comment?
I just
Thank-
would like to make. a comment
Not
that I
bad
think-
for, you've been in water resources for a month now?
Yeah.
just a little over a
Thank you
month.
thank you very
Fantastic.
much
Yeah,
for a
yeah.
very thorough report.
Thank you
Really
very much.
enjoyed having you
I
here.
appreciate it. It's an honor to be able to present in front of you.
Thank you, Kelly. You seem very comfortable in that spot. Hopefully you're back there in the future.
Thank you very much.
you passed the time test too.
Okay, good. You're right. I have time to spare.
What do you give them, 10 minutes? Is that-
Thank you.
I tried to set him up. I
Thank
told him to
you,
give a
Kelly.
45-minute speech. Just as sort of initiation, but.
Yeah, don't listen to him.
When I presented the slides, you said there could be more slides.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 4D, discussion direction regarding Brown Act compliance in 2023, limited options for remote participation. Council Weber.
Yeah, I know. This is very exciting. I didn't bring any pictures of the Brown Act, but
Some are the attachments.
yeah, and we do have some attachments. Essentially, it's just to let you guys know that the current emergency that the governor had enacted for COVID ends on February 28th. So the Brown Act emergency exception that allowed you guys to remotely appear is ending as well. And so we have two options. If people need to remotely appear, we go back to the original Brown Act, which requires you to post it at your location, make it accessible to the public at your location. It's not really that useful. And then there's a new exception they created that's not, it's for emergency or just cause. So, and I've put a chart in here, but essentially if for some reason somebody's sick, you can't get to the meeting one day, you can use that no more than twice a year and say, I have just cause, and then we can continue to use the type of electronic system we have because you have to have video and audio. And that would be, you could use it twice a year and the board member can elect that to do that. The board doesn't have to do anything. And the other one is an emergency. If there's some type of a personal emergency,
Like elk hunting?
yeah, well, that might be. Well, things you don't necessarily have to give too much information, but you have to provide some information, and the board would have to accept that emergency and act on it. And it either has to be agendized, but if it can't, the board can act at the beginning of the meeting to
Well,
accept.
on the first exception, what would be considered just cause? I mean, it's obvious not an emergency, but I thought the just cause would probably be emergencies.
They kind of overlap. It's not really clear, but like I put in the, if you look at attachment B, just causes childcare issues, caring for a parent, grandparent, some type of illness to prevent you, disability not otherwise accommodated, or travel while on official business. I think I'll have to read the statute again. I'm pretty sure elk hunting was in there. I just didn't put it in, I just didn't put it in the chart. Yeah.
I'm looking at the annual caps and you said,
Yes.
they can do no more than 2 meetings.
2 for just cause. If both of them no more than 20% of the meetings, which
Right.
would be about 4.
4, that's what I figured, yeah. So,
Or- Or
you know,
nor can you. do
whatever
3
the
in a row.
information is that
Yes.
is given.
Yeah.
I have what about, for standing committees? Do they have to follow the same thing, for attendance and whatnot and caps or?
So the Brown Act applies to standing
that
committees,
too.
yes. And so what the Brown Act says is for regular meetings.
Right,
It's not clear, but arguably I think that the cap would likely apply the same to each
could
meeting.
we maybe find out about that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interpretation issue of the statute because it's not,
Yeah.
it just says regular meetings.
And
We
then-
think you could apply it like to each meeting.
And, you know, it's like, I just retired and I do want to go to Texas a little bit. So if I want to follow the regular Brown Act, how does that relate when it's not in California? I still do the same thing? or-
You would have to do the same thing.
Sure, Anybody's welcome.
Right.
Nobody would be.
You would have to
I mean,
allow,
they would go.
yeah, you would have to allow public wherever you'd have to
Oh,
post
sure.
it, allow public in.
No, back in.
Let's show you how a real water company,
Yeah.
because the water company where our property is like all week long, you know, boil water, the mains being replaced. I get them all the time. So maybe they could watch how we do something.
To be able to
different,
attend a
show
meeting,
it.
I've done that before, going to a conference, and so I had to post it on Sunday, and the meeting was on Wednesday. So I got to ask the people in the hotel to put it on an easel, posted it there, 3 pages for 3 days,
Yeah.
and it just sat there.
But right now, it
Nobody
says
joined
on
me.
here,
The
you don't
agenda?
have to do
Post the
that
whole
if you're
agenda?
Mhm.
if you're traveling on business for the company.
That would be
You
just
would have
cause,
been-
yeah.
Yeah. And still there's only 2.
But
Yeah.
I just remember an occurrence years ago where I tried to do that and I was flying to. a
At the airport.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
remember
remember
that
I
was
was in
in the
and I was in
airport.
the airport.
Yeah.
In a
Wasn't
secure,
allowed because the public wasn't allowed.
right behind.
Because you couldn't
Yeah.
get where you
Oh,
were behind the
right,
gate.
yeah.
I remember that, yeah.
Had you been in, had you not gone through security yet, you could have
I
done
think
it.
it was just something I didn't want to vote on.
But.
You know,
Something
and
that one of your
ultimately,
fellow
we could
directors
just
didn't
not
want you to
attend.
vote on.
Yeah, that's.
You can, yeah, you
No,
can
we
miss
just
a meeting.
don't
It's-
attend the
yeah.
That's what it was.
We could
Yeah.
watch it if we wanted.
You could not, I think.
But-
And you would have had to
one of
be
the
there
big
3 days ahead of
motivations-
time, posted there too.
One of the big motivations behind the just cause, I think, is because you could not attend, you could post it and make it publicly available. But if you have a fever and you're coughing,
Yeah.
we don't particularly want you here. And we also don't want people in your home
Yeah.
or wherever it is that you
Yeah.
are. And so that's why they wanted to give an additional exception that allows some flexibility. for that.
So, let's say I want to go the current Brown Act laws. It doesn't have to be a just cause. It could just be, I'm out of town.
It has-
And then I
yes.
could do post it.
As long as you comply with the noticing requirements and the
Right, which
posting
I would-
requirements, that's right.
If I am going to be doing that, I would give you plenty of
Yeah.
notice, so.
You know,
Yeah.
when the Brown Act first came about, nobody was, having Zoom meetings.
Right,
And it
Right.
isn't like the public doesn't have the same access,
better,
Right.
I mean, they have better access than ever.
yes.
And I just kind of feel like they should.
Well,
There's been a big push.
There's been legislation.
Yes, right.
Introduced all year, and something's gonna pass. One of
It's
those is gonna.
There were at least 4 different Brown Act bills introduced last year. This is the one that came out of it. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see more in the next legislative session pushing for more. moderation.
Relaxing the.
Yeah.
the-
Kind of go back to what you've had. I mean, because as you point out, the public is, I think the public has better access to our
Yeah.
meetings now than before everybody had to
Mhm.
come here.
Sure.
Now
I
you don't
agree.
have to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
we
we can
intend to
all
keep
get
it that way. It's required to make it available online if a director is also utilizing that, but we can continue to do it, and I don't see any reason why we would stop.
Any more questions on Ralph M. Brown Act. Any public comment? Being none. Let's take a quick break before we go into the last item here. Take a 10-minute break. Old business. Okay, we're back in session. Old business, item 5A. Discussion action regarding Army Corps Section 219 local funding commitment. Jeffrey Meyer, there he is.
Good afternoon,
Hey, Jeff.
President Ratterman, members of the board. It's great to be back. The item before you today is I'll read the resolution. It's designating the Director of Admin Services, myself, as the authorized agent and authorizing the self-certification of financial capability letter for the Copper Cove wastewater treatment improvements project. And this is under the WARDA Act of 2022. You may or may not be aware of these projects, but the district has been working with the Sacramento branch of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to enter into a project partnership agreement to upgrade the treatment facilities and filtration at the Copper Cove wastewater treatment plant and reclamation facility. I'm sorry, I haven't done this for several months, so I'm kind of rusty. So you're gonna have to bear with me. This includes raising Copper Cove Pond 6 and tertiary treatment improvements at the plant itself. The agreement proposes to provide construction assistance under the WARDA Act for this project, and the latest amendment provided under the WARDA 2022 includes an authorized increase in the federal funding limit to $3.28 million for these projects located within Calaveras County.
That's 13.28.
That's what, did I not say 13.28 or
You said 3.
I'm sorry.
No, it says,
I thought you said
I
3.
meant 13.28.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yes. And the federal funding authorization, under this authorization of 13.28 million, they do require a local cost sharing match. And generally they look at 25%. This project is estimated right now to be about $21 million, which would make our local cost share match to be 7.62 million. We've identified local funding sources of the water or the sewer capital R&R fund and also Copper Cove expansion funds. However, this does not exclude the district from seeking additional funding from the state of California to help augment those funds. The application that we've got requires your board to designate an authorized agent to sign and execute the self-certification financial capability letter. That's a mouthful, which is included with this agenda packet. And that would be me. I would be signing away my life and that for this particular project. Michael's got additional detail on this, and if he wants to jump in, Michael, feel free at this time.
Yeah.
Well, this is standard.
Great. Yes.
Stuff. So
Great
we do it almost
overview.
all the grants.
Thank you, Jeff. That really good. It is pretty standard. This comes with anytime we're accepting
Right.
money and we have to make a local match, they want our commitment up front. These cost estimates are evolving. We're still in the design phase. And we're trying to get the project partnership agreement in place as quickly as possible so we can start getting those reimbursements from the Army Corps. The money has been delivered to Sacramento. It's with the Corps in Sacramento. And so there's just still these hoops that bureaucratic hoops that we have to jump through before we can start drawing from it. And a big chunk of at the same time, we're in design and environmental review. Damon and Charles have been really closely involved in this. We've had weekly, if not 2 meetings a week with the Army Corps for the last month, including over the holidays. They've actually been great. The district staff in Sacramento have been really great in making themselves available because they want to see this move forward quickly as well. So this is one of the hoops that we have to jump through. as Jeff said, we'll reach out and see if we can find other sources of funding to help with the local match. But this is still, I think, a good scenario. And one other clarification, this would be over probably a 3 or 4 year window here, so it's not all going to hit at the same time. But the federal funding of 13.28 million, we want to maximize that, and then the local match would be in addition to that. So all really good news, but there's cost to the district.
Okay, you said you're also going to look at a state. We're going to go to the state to see about funding also.
We'll explore all options. The federal match, or excuse me, the local share, you're not excluded from seeking other sources as long as you can't get other federal sources. So we're always going to try to find other sources of funding for all of our projects. So if that's an option, then absolutely, we would try to get some state funding to help with that local
Okay,
share.
but then you have a source to repay. If we go after the state.
It depends on whether it's
Oh,
a
you're not
grant or
repay,
loan.
but,
The
our
important
share.
thing here is, we're comfortable and Jeff, although he would not sign a personal guarantee as I asked, but we're comfortable with the district's commitment in terms of, if we don't secure, even if we don't secure any other outside funding, the district will be able to come up with the funds to complete the project.
Does Jeff have to do a credit check, or do they do a credit check on Jeff?
And
Okay,
just to
anything
follow-
further?
Yes,
Anything-
I'm sorry, President Ratterman, just to follow up on what Michael said and answering Director Underhill's question, we would not be looking for loans from the state on this project. We would be looking for grant monies. So it would reduce our local share. And also, as Director Cicada said, this is nothing new. We for transparency purposes, and we started this years ago. If we, the district, are going to make a commitment for local match, we always wanted to bring it to your board so you're aware of this and gain concurrence. And in this particular case, the Corps requires me to sign away my life as part of this commitment letter.
Okay, thank you. Just to remind everybody, this is the funding, this 13.28 million is the funding that that the Legal Affairs Committee, along with Mia and Congressman McClintock, have been so key on assisting with.
Oh, okay.
And this is the same, we've already received a commitment for $1 million in the year 2022.
So we got one in fiscal year 22, federal fiscal year. We got another million in the $1.7 trillion budget that just passed a couple weeks ago. We got our second round of funding, and we're trying to get that increased. The 13.28 was an increase in the authorization. The amount that we're eligible to get goes up from 3 million to 13.28.
It's almost.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, I'd like to move this item.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Go ahead, Ralph. Ralph Copeland online.
Yes, here, just a heads up regarding Congressman McClintock. I received a personal letter from him on December 6th, which basically said that the community must take care of their own without earmarks. Then he had a speech on December 1st that quote, "It's hard to find a grant program that actually delivered on its promises." So granted that McClintock helped us a bit on this work here in Copper, I would say we have a battle with this gentleman regarding his beliefs on earmarks and grant programs. So take it for what it's worth. I'll be happy to share my letter I received to him if anyone is interested, and also the link to his comments regarding that grant programs don't work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, take the roll.
Director Cicada?
Yes.
Director Thomas?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Underhill?
Yes.
President Ratterman?
Yes.
I just want to say one thing. I'm very thankful for our congressman's support and our senator's support on this project. This is a big deal. We were told that this wasn't possible just a couple of years ago, that they wouldn't even consider a New Start project. So the work that you've done, and Mia, and what little effort we put in, but I'm very appreciative of our congressmen and our senators for the support.
Yeah, yes, indeed.
concur.
Yes, indeed. Okay, item 6, reports. Reports on the operation and engineering departments. Damon.
So the storm report was just the last couple of days, so just really important to continue to highlight the work that our folks do during the month. And so for you.
You got more pictures. You're gonna run out of film.
Yeah, our guys, the floodgates are starting to open.
No pun intended. No, yeah.
Picture. So here we are, Highway 26 main break, generally crew repairing, and you can see the image on the line. Kind of hard to make out in the image on the left, but there's some spray there at the, sticking on top of the pipe, and you can see the pickup tube of the gap back truck on the right, and a little bit of spray. And then, this, of course, perspective, you can see how big the full circle clamp is. You can see our operator tightening down the full circle clamp on the image on the left, and then this main break repair. Moving on, it's just a constant service line repair and replacement effort. The utility crew is also working in the Rancho Calaveras area now. They've been moving down the Baldwin at quite a clip, weather permitting. This is really kind of an interesting service line repair in that it shows that what our crews have to do when the service line's encased in slurry. So like a small concrete, or it's like a very brittle concrete, so to speak. So there's the jackhammer with the spade bit on the left, and they're exposing the service line, which is below those communication lines there. There it is sitting underneath the comm line with the slurry excavated. Kind of hard to see in the image on the right, but quite a small opening in the asphalt, in my opinion, to get that work done. So great work on their part. Moving on, here's another interesting one, service line repair on Butler. You can see the image on the left between the two driveways. If you look kind of down at the top of the picture, you can see the water is percolating out, going down the right side driveway. But in the image on, there's a crack and a triangle up front on that, on the concrete in between the driveways. And that's where our distribution operator is standing in the image on the right. So trying to make as small of an opening as possible in order to run that service line into the meter box instead of make a repair. 4-inch water main repair in West Point, action shot on the right of the water spraying out at the pickup tube as we've actually exposed the main there. You can kind of see that what it looks like when staff are kind of in the midst of excavating in the image on the left. And then as we start to get down to a more complete repair, you can see the full circle clamp in the picture, and you can see the culprit most likely were the tree roots that had to be cut out of the way in order to make the repair in the image on the right. And incidentally, we have an appointment with the tree company to take that tree out now, as we don't want to create an issue from making a repair. Storms have slowed us down somewhat in that regard. Here's a 2-inch water line repair at a valve cluster in West Point at the water treatment plant. So this is the gap backs and crew in the image on the left. The valve box in the image on the right was quite a ring of concrete. I don't know if I have a picture of that, but just kind of show you what our crew was dealing with. In the picture on the right, it was a 2-inch coming off of a valve and a manifold of sorts of piping. And our crews were able to get in there and make a nice clean repair and support that with a piece of unistrut. And then you can see the valve in the bottom of the image on the left, and you can see Doug and Chris backfilling the hole with the dump truck in the image on the right. Let's see here, and I believe that is an Enterprise dump truck. This is what happens when water next to AT&T springs a leak on a service line, and blows through at 400 pair T line. So really, nobody's fault but the service lines, and it gave up the ghost. And you can see there's multiple full circle clamps. So crews came in, excavated and exposed, coordinated with AT&T to get in there. You can see that picture on the right shows.
Darren?
Yeah.
On that previous picture,
Uh-huh.
on the right side picture, the one with all the clamps, that's our water line.
Correct.
How come, I'm not the one that does this, but when you go in there to fix a leak and you see a clamp, instead of put another clamp, would you just want to consolidate it and like cut a piece of pipe and not have all clamp? You know what I'm saying? Instead, you have several, and I'm just wondering why that wouldn't work.
It can depend on the circumstance. It can depend on whether or not this was a 2 o'clock in the morning call out, or you know what I mean? And so oftentimes what will happen is if, there'll be a list of service lines that have multiple clamps on them that our staff is aware that are on the replacement list. Because perhaps a field crew on a Sunday morning exposed it and found the leak and put a repair clamp on it just to be in and out in a couple hours and said, hey, guys, by the way, there's this service line that has multiple repairs on it. We need to replace it. Or what can happen is, middle of the day, we get a call, customer service calls us to go check for leak, and we find it and we say, you know what, it's time to replace it. And in this
You do a
case,
section this big. And
right, exactly. And in this case, that's what our crew did. You can see the image on the left is the service line with those clamps removed, and then the properly repaired 400 pair work completed by AT&T. So cleaned it up quite a bit.
So Damon, the damage to the AT&T lines was, happened as a result of this spray, the force of the spray going on?
Correct. Yeah,
Wow.
And we were responsible for that.
that's right. Yeah. Yes.
You don't want to tell them to dig their own hole.
You know what? Unfortunately, we dug it for them. The leak dug the hole. So by the time our crews showed up and isolated the water, the hole was open. So sometimes we have failures like that where the water pipe just wants to be seen by everybody and digs its own hole on the failure. And that was one of
But
those.
it looks like there's two AT&T lines there, if I'm looking at that correctly, and it broke through both of them?
Yeah, I believe, yes.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Amazing.
just, yeah.
A lot of pressure in that area.
That's the Big Trees Village.
A lot
Yeah,
of pressure.
yeah.
I guess if you can cut concrete with high pressure water.
I've seen ductile fittings eroded away. Yeah. Here's an image of some mechanical work. It's a little bit subtle, but the image on the left is an old motor on that pump. This is in the Wallace wastewater treatment facility. Image on the right is with the brand spanking new motor on the hand pump with the tag still on. And then we have this is an interesting one. So this is the vac truck that we keep up at White Pines, the Evans Pass service area, 2014 vintage, I believe, right? And so this is the U-joint, the driveline failed, the U-joint exploded, and part of the driveline shot into the radiator. As our guys are working to go make a repair, so our mechanics were able to get up there and limp the vac on back to White Pines, which is a testament to our guys. And so it's just kind of an illustration of the power of the force and how much work we put these things through.
Oh, and we did the repair.
Actually, MME, who's the vendor that sells us the vac-ons and vac-on equipment, is doing the repair.
Oh, okay.
Image on the left, we're setting the switch gear here for the corp yard outside here. And then backflow device repair in the.
Is that our crane
right?
truck?
That is, that's one of our mechanics trucks, yes.
We have a crane truck?
We have a few. Here's lift station 18, generator would not shut off. Electricians are called out to troubleshoot. These are wins sometimes, and gosh, what the heck is going on here? Can't figure out why this thing won't shut off. Let's go look outside. Oh yeah, there's a fuse that's popped on the PG&E panel. That's great. Let's call PG&E, have a troublesman show up, pop the fuse back in, all is back to normal. Those are really good calls. rather than, the brain of the generator is fried or the water pump went out and we need to call somebody into the rescue at 2 o'clock in the morning to bring one in from Santa Rosa. This is the kind of repair you want to see. See here, this is our electricians and our construction crew working together to pour the switchgear and generator pads for right outside here. They also ran the conduit for the PG&E power drop to the switchgear and passed on the first call for the inspection, which is great. And hats off to those guys and Kevin Williams, who's our project manager on this one. Here's flow meter verifications. This is going on at the Hunter's Water Treatment Plant effluent pump station. So taking one flow meter, which are these magnetic strap-on flow meters, and comparing its calibration versus another flow meter, and then also doing so at the Jenny Lind Water Treatment Facility. And then
Were they identical in their report?
Jenny Lind was on, actually, both were totally identical in their report. However, the flow meter for the Hunter's Water Treatment Plant was determined to be too close to an appurtenance, and I'm not sure if it was a valve or an ARV, and so our electricians moved it to make it more accurate. And then here is the Copper Cove Reclaim Facility, the export valve at the reclaim plant, our electricians troubleshooting and replacing components. If you guys, when you look at the department report, their list is always a mile long.
Yeah.
And I do, I do have a talk with everybody that, we want the high points. And so really, our folks do a lot of work that is of note and to be discussed. And this is from the inimitable Ben Stopper. Late in the afternoon on Wednesday, we're like, hey, maybe things are going to get a little better from the Lock and Tenant Waste Treatment Plant.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So thank you, guys. Any
Thank you.
questions?
Just real quick, I just want to share something that happened. I'm currently finishing up a brewery over in Cameron Park, which is overseen by DID. And the other day we were out there working. There were some guys tying rebar for some concrete, and an ERD guy was messing with a fire hydrant. And the guys that were tying the steel, they had their truck backed up, had a camper shell and all their tools and everything in the back of it. Well, eventually this guy got that fire hydrant turned on and it knocked over the portable toilet and filled up the back of that truck. I mean, before they could get it turned, it took them about a minute to get the thing turned off, and it literally just inundated.
Oh my gosh.
That would go viral on YouTube. Did anybody get that?
I wish we would have, but, and when they, they had to push the portable toilet up, and I said, hey, did you check to see if anybody's in there? It was just.
That would be a tough day.
And Damon, it seems like with all these pictures coming in, maybe our wastewater operators at some point could provide Matt with a picture for the next time he has to give a Brown Act.
Yeah. Oh, no problem.
I need some pictures for that one.
Okay, consider it done, Matt.
I just did have one question. Way on the back, it talked about vandalism due to vandalism and stolen fuel.
In your.
Oh, yeah. So at the warehouse where we're currently housed, we have some of the older trucks and some of the trucks that we don't use as often. And we also have issues here periodically where we'll have folks jump the fence and siphon fuel. And a lot of times they'll cut the filler neck of the tanks. And so we file reports with the sheriff's department. We actually have a sheriff's deputy who, when he's on graveyards, eats his lunch right outside here.
Oh.
So he can help keep an eye on everything. But it has been a constant issue of vandalism and snooping around here and at the at the old warehouse. However, when we installed the razor wire recently, we feel that that's really had a beneficial effect, because what would happen is folks would just kind of hop the barbed wire fence and they were in. So
Spoiler alert for fiscal year 23-24 budget, though, there'll be some security. We need to make some security upgrades.
yes, definitely do. Definitely do.
Plus that razor wire helps keep the employees here.
That's good.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, General Manager report.
Okay, I'll try to make it quick. We talked about a little bit earlier, the importance of a local hazard mitigation plan. It just so happens that we're in the process of updating our local hazard mitigation plan. It's a 5-year cycle, I think. So we go through this public process. We reach out to other partner agencies. We have to make sure that, any potential hazards are identified in that, so we can go out and try to get that pre-hazard mitigation funding. So that process is just kicking off. I think probably Water Resources is going to be in the lead on it, but it's a departmental effort and multi-stakeholder effort. We'll be doing a lot of public outreach on that. We've had more staffing turnover. We've had a couple of retirements recently, so that kind of always triggers this sort of domino effect of moving people around within the district and then hiring from outside. So there's still some staffing changes that have been taking place. It's kind of led us to revisit the idea of succession planning in a more formal sense. We're kind of always succession planning based on what the outlook is for the next 6 months to a year. But we may try to take a bit of a more formal approach, depending, and it may be department specific. And so there'll be more to come on that. We mentioned earlier mutual assistance that we provided to the county and to Utica during these storms. So the update on the mutual aid, I guess, if you recall, a few months ago, the board approved the template for a mutual aid agreement. And the first one that we did was with TUD. And that agreement has been in effect for several months now. We now have an identical agreement with Utica. And that it came in handy over these last few weeks. And I expect that, and I think Utica used that template to enter into an agreement with Joel's Camp, I believe it was. And so that is proving to be really, really useful tool for us. And I'll keep reporting out to the board anytime we do enter into those mutual aid agreements. I'll make sure the board's aware of it, but so far right now it's TUD and Utica, but I would expect to see more of those over time. Let's see, we are working on spreading the good news that when it comes to some of the success we've had with funding. The other big one that came through a few weeks ago was the approval of the request to increase our grant funding for the West Point Wilseyville wastewater consolidation project. The initial funding request was 4.75 million. That was approved, but by the time that project got went out to bid, the low bid was 8.5, I think it was. And the total project cost is now up to 9.9 million. We now have approval to grant fund the full cost of that project, and it's 100% grant funded project.
Good job.
Yeah, shout out to Damon and Charles and the engineering
Thanks, you
team.
guys.
Charles, really was in the lead on that. So really, really good news.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's in addition to the success that we've already talked about with the Section 219 funding. So we're gonna push a press release out and just kind of share the good news about all the wastewater grant funding and other sources of funding that we've been able to pull in. And the person drafting that press release. Do you want to make an announcement?
No, you do it. She already called us.
I know she already let the board know, but a lot of people don't know yet still that Jessica will be leaving us, sadly. But bittersweet, bitter that we'll miss her at CCWD, but super, super excited for her taking the GM job at UPUD, which is, I think she's going to be exceptional at, and we get to continue working with her in that capacity. That's a really important relationship for us. So I'm excited about what we can do in the future there. So.
And she's given us a long notice.
Also
You're gonna
very
be great,
grateful
Jessica.
to
We'll miss you,
Jessica
but you're
and
gonna be
to very grateful to Jessica and to the UPUD board for the extended notice that we have, because we've got a lot going on, and so we'll still have a couple months to get, well, not quite a couple months, into February. And that's the only nice thing that I'm gonna say about the UPUD board right now. I've already submitted a list of demands that I have for poaching one of our superstars. But no, we're excited for Jessica. So congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congratulations and yeah.
Jessica Self, General Manager. Oh.
Okay, next item, 7, board, or Michael, are you finished?
Done.
Okay.
Nice, perfect.
Board reports, information, future agenda items. Cindy.
Not really anything to report other than, with the new committees, I'm on, a new one. Could we get some kind of a summary that says, I know the finance committee meets the third Tuesday of the month, but when do the other committees meet? If we could, I can't get that, you don't know?
Yeah. Well, I know
well,
that,
Sorry, go ahead.
excuse me, we had talked about having a calendar again, but things change all the time, so it's really hard for her to
Well,
keep
I'm
up
not
with.
looking for a calendar, but like, let's take camera. How often do they try
That's
to,
right.
every quarter or,
Quarterly.
that's quarterly,
Yeah.
okay? And is it like the first Tuesday or whatever? Can I get that kind of information?
I don't remember for camera. It's
I don't know
quarterly.
if they're all on
I
here.
will try and plan during my
Are you
travel.
talking about-
No,
I
so,
never
but it's a
know
good point. We do have regular schedules for our committees. We'll work with
Right.
the new committee members to establish a regular schedule for that one as well. And so we could publish a calendar that includes all of the regular meetings.
Well, it could just be tentative, but I'm just wondering, so the engineering committee meets how often?
Engineering and legal affairs alternate every other month. So,
Okay, so when is the tentative next meeting? That's
First-
really all I need to know.
well, those are regular meetings. So the first Tuesday of every month, those two committees will, either one of the two will be meeting. This month's got postponed. So engineering, because it was New Year's,
Yeah.
engineering committee actually meets next week.
I'm the alternate engineering, so I'm just gonna kind of make a note of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And camera, we don't know, it's quarterly.
Camera used to be quarterly. When we had a lot of stuff going on with Wild and Scenic, we moved it to every other month. There was 6 meetings a month. Since then, it's been, and then COVID hit a couple of years after that. So, and it has not ever gone back to a regular, and it should be every other month, I think is what is
Okay.
when, but they're being,
Bi-monthly.
more of them are being canceled than held right now.
Gotcha. And I'm on the email, so.
Right.
Well, and what we can do is add you all to each of the meeting notices, so they will be on your Outlook calendars on your
Yeah.
laptops.
And UMRA is quarterly also.
I'm running forward. Okay. Thank you.
Cindy, is that it?
Yes, sir.
Russ?
Okay, I'd like to take this moment to acknowledge the effort of our new president to come up with this external relations committee. I think that's a great idea. Looking forward to accomplishing some worthwhile stuff on that. And I want to acknowledge, Scott, that it took a lot of time for you to do that, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome.
I'll be working with my good friend Bertha Underhill on that. We'll shake things up around here, huh?
Oh, yeah, so I can hardly
Looking
wait.
Okay, I would like to just put out a kind of plant a seed of an idea that I became aware years ago that the county has an email retention policy that kind of scrubs their server of emails to directors and department heads about every 90 days or so. I don't think we have a similar policy here.
Do you want to take that one or me? We do. And Rebecca's put a lot of work into updating it. We just haven't brought it back yet to the board, but we have. And so it's out of date. And so we're kind of in the process of updating that. We can bring it
How
back.
long do we have to hold on to
It depends on the
content?
content.
Okay, so we will get some briefing on
Yep.
that. Okay, Anyway, I was reading through this Aqua news publication that came out, and I was kind of amused by the 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and it's 30 years ago, they were reporting that they had very serious concerns about the latest drought conditions and the outlook for the State Water Project and Central Valley Project customers. In the following week, storms dumped a little over 5 inches of rain on Northern California. So we're back in that same scenario,
So
right?
they forgot about it.
They forgot about it.
No crisis.
Yeah. But is it reasonable to assume that Aqua can lean into the need to build what was the name of the reservoir up in the west side, that Sites Reservoir? What are we just going to always kick the can down the road on this storage problem?
There have been a lot of, I think Aqua does quite a bit of advocacy to improve storage, both for dam safety funding for existing reservoirs and to expand storage as well. So they're active on that front. Sites has its own whole, it's a huge project, even though it isn't. No ground has been disturbed and no water has moved. It has a huge project team and a lot of advocates that are pushing for it. But yeah, Aqua, I don't know how directly involved Aqua is in that particular project, but in general, they do advocate for more storage.
But anytime that you pick up an article that talks about the impacts of this drought cycle and the more frequent droughts and stuff, that they always point out that our largest reservoir, our snowpack, is going to become less and less dependable. So it would seem to me that once they make that statement, they would segue into discussion about, well, what are we going to do about that? Do we need alternate storage? And it seems like to me that the answer is obviously yes, but is the environmental faction just so strong that we will never see it?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it, definitely. The cost benefit of the different proposed dam sites is really what comes up. After Prop 1 passed, there was a huge effort to identify storage locations, and Sites was really the only one that got a huge amount of funding committed to it, because the other projects, Temperance Flat being one of the other ones behind Millerton, the cost benefit analysis didn't come out in their favor, at least according to the commission that was reviewing those applications. So there's the challenge of, any good dam site in California has largely been built on. And so Sites is a very attractive project because it's off-stream storage. And so they're adding storage that doesn't require, ideal geologic conditions in order to find a dam site. And the other huge push, though, is for groundwater storage. I mean, you're aware of that.
Yeah.
Being I think the consensus is there's much greater potential there than there is for additional surface storage, but additional surface storage is going to be part of the picture as well.
Okay, well, maybe if they just change the orientation of that a good dam site to a damn good site. So just saying. Anyway, that's all I had.
Director Davidson.
Well, I also want to thank our new president for not putting me on the external affairs committee.
I thought it'd be challenging your ability.
I'm sure I was in the running for the final member.
Thank you for participating in the selection process.
Oh, he didn't?
I mentioned this to Michael, and maybe I can ask Damon a quick question about, the power's been out in Wallace for quite some time, Wallace Lake Estates. Has that affected our treatment facility? And then I also wanted to follow up to Michael, because I was hoping to get some sort of instruction or recommendations for people on our septic systems that have power outages. because it, particularly if they're pumping, to that. So, I mean, did it affect us, and can we follow up and get some sort of bulletin or notice to those people that are during the power shut off?
Did affect us. Generator ops would keep that facility running, so we were good there. And then timely conversation with Jessica and Michael and myself regarding a primer on what to do and how to operate your septic tank in a power outage, especially if it's a pump system. So yeah, there is a cut sheet on that. Jessica developed a really good one.
Okay.
And so we do have something that we can push out to those folks.
Is that something that we'll mail out, or?
It's been pushed out already. It's on a couple of different local media sites have already picked it up. But we could potentially mail it out. I think Amos, our collection crew lead, had a good idea of that being a regular. We should just do it, you refresh it, change it up a little bit, but send that out every year.
Like a seasonal release kind of thing.
Seasonal
Yeah.
release,
Well, even if you could, I don't know if we could do this in the Brown Act or not, but even if you just could send it to the directors or at least to me and make it shareable, and then maybe we could all just kind of share it and.
Yeah,
get
absolutely.
broader
It's public. It's on our
distribution.
Facebook page already.
Is it? Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get it to you.
all right.
Join Facebook. That's good. Bertha, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I only have a couple of items, but I was curious, what was the turnout for Joel Metzger?
That's on my list. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I forgot to mention that. It was fantastic. I was really impressed, both with the presentation, the quality of the presentation, and the fact that there were 140 people there. We
Oh.
packed the Bret Hart Theater. I had to park in the Deo parking lot.
Wow. On a
It
windy,
was,
cold
it was
night.
great. And I know Joel, I know in advance, he was nervous about, is nobody going to show up to this thing? It was packed. And he got, I think it was really well received. He did a really good job. And it was great to see that level of engagement from the community
right.
and learning about these issues. And Rebecca Callen gave a presentation as well. So all really good.
Unless
Are
it's
they
free
going-
cocktails or something.
Are they going to be having another one of some kind, or, was it televised?
I don't know if there's anything planned, but he marketed that as the world premiere of the video. And premiere to me means there's gonna be more in the future, right? Like, so a second
I
run,
see.
we'll see.
Oh,
I don't know.
okay, because
I think it is available. I'm sure it's probably on their Facebook page or their website.
Is it?
We can send it to you guys.
Is it, how long is it?
10 minutes, 12 minutes?
It is on there, okay.
Yeah.
on their website?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Very well
I'm
done.
glad to hear that.
it was
And then-
great. I was definitely, congratulating Joel. I think it was, they must have just been thrilled with the turnout and yeah, I think they did a really
Yeah,
good
because
job.
here comes the storm and just.
I was wondering if they were going to cancel it that day.
Uh-huh.
Because they've been busy too, but no, it all went off very well.
Okay, well, great. The other thing is the fact that I'm really excited about the new committee assignment, because I guess you all know that I didn't sign up for finance again after, I don't know how many years. I was on the finance
4.
committee.
I think we could
Four
measure
this
it in
time.
decades, probably.
40?
Yeah, but you're still the alternate, so don't,
Oh, I guess so. I don't know. But anyway, I'm really excited about this new committee, and I'm looking forward to working with Russ and, because we've all talked about that, and Jessica's done a wonderful job, and I'm really sorry to see you go. But we'll try to keep on, okay? So me and you, Russ.
Anything else?
We'll do it.
Okay, yeah, and regarding back to that committee, the purpose and focus of this new committee that Director Davidson has talked about, and Director Boggs has talked about, and Berth has talked about. I forgot to say that the purpose and focus of this committee will be outreach, such as town halls, publications, news releases, etc. The committee will also be tasked with focusing on our relationship with customers, other utilities, and other organizations. I failed to make that. And legal affair, I did check the calendar on our Outlook. Is that accurate for the legal affairs meeting in the end of January? Okay. And then if we could get a memo out to the members of the new committee on when they're next gonna meet or first gonna meet or how.
Well, I think we'll defer to the new committee members, but we can meet right away and come
Okay.
up, we can meet right after this and just come up with a schedule on what works best for the committee members. We've already had some internal meetings staffing wise in terms of how we're gonna staff it. So yeah, we're ready to hit the ground running and we'll talk offline about.
So
it.
Russ and Bertha get together on how that's gonna go, when it's gonna be, and how often you guys want to meet.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Can I see one more thing? I've got the calendar.
No, your time is done. Go ahead.
I'm looking at the calendar, under Outlook. And so you're gonna go ahead and put all the other committees on the calendar when they come available. And is there any way you can put like events, like when Aqua has their fall conference, put those types of things on here? Awesome.
Well, then
Very
we
good.
don't need a calendar.
Well,
No,
if
I'm
it's
not-
shared
you know,
No, that
here,
is a
that's
calendar.
what
Well,
I'm
that
looking
is a
at. This
calendar.
would be ideal. That way, if I am
Yeah.
gonna make some kind of plans, I can at least look here and work around it.
Like
Plus I
when Form
can-
700s are due, maybe that'd be another thing.
Yeah, that would be another one. Just
Yeah, that's
anything like that
April.
would
Have
be
you ever felt
great.
like
I need it for it as much as anybody.
And right now, I only see our regular meetings on here, but you'll update stuff as.
So
you
legal
decide.
affairs should be on January 31st.
I don't show it on here. I'm looking
Oh.
at it.
Not everybody has
Oh,
an
okay.
invite, so
Okay.
I'll make sure.
But in the
everybody's on
future,
it.
it'll be on everyone?
But-
Okay, cool.
But with the calendar, we all don't have the one calendar that we look at.
No,
No.
it's to your individual email.
Oh, mine, how do you do?
What you've been invited to thus far or noticed to. Okay, let's
But
go
why
on.
couldn't we have a shared one that we see all the?
I think
committees
that
for
she
the
said that
district?
going forward, we are going to.
You are?
She's gonna be
It'll,
putting
it'll
all,
be on your calendar, but everybody will have an invite to it,
Okay.
whether they're on the committee or not.
Perfect.
is there a way of putting things on that calendar like when Mountain County is having an event or when Aqua's
Yeah.
having a conference? We can
Mhm.
put those on there without an invite or just
Yes.
something to do with email?
Well, I would have to send an invite.
Okay, all right,
That's how this calendar works. It's got to be an invite thing.
sounds like it.
Oh, interesting.
And do we have to respond yes or no to that invite to get it on the
Oh.
calendar? You know?
No, it'll sit there until you
Yeah, you
respond
don't
to it.
have
If you
to.
don't respond to it, it'll still be there.
It'll show as tentative.
Okay, so, and I just found that out too, when you get an email, don't just delete it, click yes or no, and it goes away, it's
Okay,
gone.
but if I accept it, it'll go on my calendar. If
Yeah,
I
but that
don't, it
email
goes
will go away and it'll be on your calendar.
Perfect. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay, item 8, next board meeting, Wednesday, January 25th and February 8, right here in this room at 1 PM. We're going into closed session with 2 items. Any public comment on closed session? Anyone on, all right,
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, then
Well, thank you, everybody.
When I was looking, I had my hard copy, I had this.